I'm on a mission to create one of the most insane survival bases in Minecraft. This massive city, complete with skyscrapers, parks, a stadium, and even a gay bar. The problem is I haven't actually built any of it. Today though, that's going to change. To start off, we're going to need a blank canvas to build on, and right now I have a mess. So I made an even bigger mess by blowing up the hill in front of the Capitol, because we're going to need all the space we can get for this one. After that, I jumped over to the opposite side of the base to, after nearly a year, complete the seaside cliffs surrounding the base. And then, I had to confront one of my old mistakes. Basically what happened is that Brad and I initially built this flat area here 2 blocks lower than it actually needed to be. And I could, dig it out and replace it like a normal person. However, I am allergic to manual labor. So, we're going to be doing some redneck engineering. So here I have the schematic for the Euler 3D TNT duper, and I am going to modify it so that it will move this platform upwards for me. Fuck. Place. Cactus it. Alrighty, now let's set the beast free. I'll see away it goes. God, I'm clever. Alright, coming into the return station here. We got a little buffer. Oh, and basically that self-return component is no longer a long enough delay. So, I have even worse redneck engineering. Aha. Yeah, so I'm gonna reset that strip just because I don't want it potentially interfering, just because I've been modifying stuff, and then we're gonna give it a fresh run and see how my genius works. Alright, here she comes. Ah! It worked! Wait, fuck. What the fuck? I haven't thought that through very well, have I? A more intelligent man may have given up at this point, but I was in too deep to pull out now, a situation I often find myself in with your mother. So I modified another flying machine. This one sent to me by a tree chopper. It's a liquid sleeper by somebody that I forget. I'll put it on screen. But basically, this only lifts it one block up at a time, but I'll just build 2 of them, and it'll be the same difference, and it'll be fun. Now that my canvas was properly blankened, we could get on to the real project. Starting with something every city needs, roads. We've got a pretty basic road design here, but on the 2 main streets, I added this decorative median thing, and also some bike lanes so the urbanists don't have me crucified. Anyway, with the street layout locked in, it's time to dig into the meat of this project, the buildings. This was a daunting task to say the least, and I figured that for once in my goddamn life I should probably plan ahead. My plan for the buildings is to break them into as many small segments as possible so my feeble mind is not overwhelmed. So the first thing I needed to do was draw a skyline, which is effectively a profile at the height of the building, so with the tallest buildings being roughly towards the middle and the shorter ones being towards the outside. Now, since this dictated the height of all my later buildings, obviously this is a very careful process. Now, using that framework, I filled in a bunch of rough wireframes to get a feel for the general shape of the buildings and how they'll all fit together. A word of advice, you want to keep the taller buildings somewhat clustered to create, the center of that skyline. But if you put them too close, they'll actually block each other's view and then it just looks stupid and messy. So what I try to do, I try to put tall buildings, if they're really close, put them on diagonals to each other so they're not obstructing each other. Once I was happy with the wireframes though, I assigned each building to 3 basic themes: modern, mid-century, and art deco. From here on out, I could just pick a random building and shit it out based on the frame. And shit out buildings I did. Before I knew it, I had an entire block ready to build in survival. It took a fucking week. Regardless of that though, I was incredibly excited to take on this project. To start off, I built this gray building here, inspired by the Seagram building in New York, though honestly this style was like half the skyscrapers on the planet from the 60s to the 80s, so there's a lot of similar ones out there. The next building was based on some random ass building I saw when visiting Indianapolis. The main feature I liked was the wood accents it's got going, and I think they translated very well into Minecraft. These next few I just pulled out of my ass. The final building is based off Arulia, I don't know. Something pretentious like that in Chicago. It's a cool building though. I decided that for the rest of this project, I would build it in blocks, which means I design an entire block in creative and build it in survival before moving on to the next. This way I can hopefully avoid losing my sanity in either the test world or the survival world. Spoiler, this did not work at all. Anyway, getting into the second block, this first building here was inspired by MBC Tower in Chicago. This building uses a few visual tricks to make it appear taller than it actually is. The first trick is setbacks. Basically, since building is thinner at the top than the bottom, it tricks your dumbass into thinking that that part is farther away than it actually is, because small thing look far away, or whatever. The other trick is vertical lines, and these just drop your eyes upwards, which again makes your dumbass brain think that it's tall. Next 2 buildings are inspired by these pictures respectively, nothing super fancy going on, pretty normal shit. And I'm leaving 2 buildings on this block blank because later I'm going to be recruiting some friends to design them for me since I'm a lazy bastard. Block 3 was pretty simple. I just built these 3 little small buildings here, not really inspired by anything in particular, I just pulled them out of my ass. Block number 4 started out with this building by my good friends Brad and Zeg. They designed this ages ago, in a much earlier phase of the project, but I finally got to bring it to life here. I really like this building. I think it's got a unique color scheme with all the sign and stuff, and yeah, I'm really excited to finally have it here. The next building is this granite one, which is one of the tallest ones in the city. It's based off the One Seneca Tower in Buffalo, New York. It's not super detailed or anything, but sometimes the more simple designs like this are good to have around. Then I wrapped things up with this modern apartment building based off an apartment complex in Seattle. Now it's time for block number 5, opening up with one of my favorite buildings in the entire city, which is based off this really unique building called Parkview Square in Singapore. Really like the color scheme with the brown and stuff, works nicely with the mud and whatnot in game, and some of these ornamental details it has on it. And then I tried my hand at one of these like brick buildings with white trim that are literally everywhere in New York. I added these little arched windows because they look cool. Finally in the back, I just filled things up with a little park. Block number 6 was a much more unique task. Instead of building a bunch of small buildings, I was basically building one big structure. A stadium. And yes, it's American football, because the other thing is called soccer, and I'm not changing my mind until one of you bastards outdoes our military budget. Anyway, I started with the easy part, which is this little parking garage here that I just tossed up quick. The stadium itself was designed by my absolute goat, Brad. He used Lucas Oil Stadium as the inspiration for this, and it's an amazing build. I think having a stadium really helps bring a lot of life into the city and just improves the area astronomically. Block 7 here has 2 of my favorite buildings. First is this modern building inspired by the Eclipse Towers in GTA. I used the snow layers in order to create the little slit things at the bottom and added a rooftop garden at the top because, why not? The second building is another one of my favorite buildings. This massive Art Deco skyscraper. I based the shape off the Woolworth building in New York. The biggest change I made was swapping the white color palette for a red-pink color palette, with, some dripstone, granite, packed mud, terracotta. Topped it off with my favorite part, the big copper point bit. Block 8 was one of the most complicated blocks I built, mostly because there's so many goddamn buildings in it. At this point, the work I was doing was starting to catch up to me, and the only thing keeping me sane was just jamming out. Or as sane as I really could be given the situation, I guess. Anyway, I started off building this Art Deco building here. I put some exaggerated features on it with the trim, similar to Good Times with Scars buildings back in Aquatown way back in the day. I also added some glorious wall art. The next building was a partially constructed building with a tower crane putting it together. And I think it adds a nice sense of motion to the city as a whole and really elevates everything. Next to that, I threw in another one of those generic-ass mid-century buildings, and this nice little Art Deco building on the corner. And I really like the way the lecterns were used here. I think it turned out very well, quite proud of that. Also, the replay for that one got corrupted, which pissed me off. Next, I jumped over to this more modern building, inspired by a Lego set. By the way, Lego's been a great fucking inspiration for Minecraft builds, we should try it. Also, the goddamn replay corrupted again! So yeah, I finally put together this building, which was inspired by this old postcard here. And it's another one of my favorites. Really like how all the different colors interact on it. It's a very, very nice building in my opinion. I also tossed in some trees and a tennis court out front, just for like green space, I guess. Before I could do the next block though, I had to add the only interior that I'm going to build in the entire city. Can you guess what it is? It's a gay bar. Now, if you haven't had a lobotomy recently, you'll probably wonder, why? Well, it all started with a statue. So I decided I'd give him his own statue, inside of a gay bar. Now, one issue I ran into very quickly is that gay bars and normal bars are exactly the same from an architectural perspective, so I needed a clear way to distinguish this as a gay bar. So, I had to harness the full power of my engineering genius to create the 3x3 penis door. If you were to pick a building in this city, which building would you say is the most homosexual? Being the gay best friend you are, being an expert on this. I feel like this one is fairly homosexual. It has a tennis court. Tennis is pretty gay.
I do think that's a good one though, because you're also like looking out into the ocean and everything, or you're looking over his
looking
city,
looking at pretty views. That's gay. Yeah. So, this is the most homosexual building in the city. There you have it, dear viewer. So, yeah, let's build a gay bar. Behold, Big D's Gay Bar and Club.
Oh.
Isn't it beautiful? It's the use for the penis
Wonderful.
store. Yeah, look.
Yeah. That's great.
Here's...
Oh, look at that mustache.
we got the drinks, we got tables. Pretty nice
Dude,
place.
You the birth year right, and my death year.
Yeah, exactly. I know my stuff.
That's too good.
I'm thinking about installing a glory hole somewhere too. I don't know where though. Block 9 was a disaster. In both design and recording, since Replay Mod decided to biblically shit itself again, I'm gonna do a walkthrough using a cinematic mod that doesn't tear itself to pieces, that being Flashback. First up, we've got the problem building. This structure, with all the curved pillars and walls and things, is inspired by the Minneapolis courthouse, and also curved it vertically, which looks cool, but also made it way more of a pain in the ass to build. Another thing I did was all this detailing on the back window here, with all these little multicolored glass pane sticky outy bits. I think they add some depth and a lot of interest to an otherwise really goddamn boring window. Next building was this red Art Deco building based on this building in New York. And I finally built this modern building to cap things off, which Replay Mod actually fucking worked on for once. Now it's time to kick off Block 10 with the tallest building in the city. This massive glass skyscraper inspired by this concept for a building in Toronto. This building was a beast to build in survival, mostly because the inner concrete wall added so many extra blocks I had to place. But that's also completely necessary because otherwise these big glass buildings just look like a fucking fish tank. Next that I built is another one of my all-time favorite buildings. I know I've said that for like half the buildings I put up here, but I actually mean it this time. This is inspired by this gray building in St. Louis, but I color swapped it to this blue gradient, which I think spices things up and, adds some color. Fun thing. Finally, I added this building based on 1221 of the Americas in New York. I'm really proud of the wall fence alternating. That's a very useful feature that can create these fun lines, and I think it's a cool effect. Now, the next two buildings aren't designed by me at all, but some of my good friends. The first one is my friend and server mate Glitter Crystal. You should watch her channel. While her channel may be great, her taste in flowers is ass. I had to get torch flowers for this build, and I was not happy with that. Now you may think this is easy. Just get a sniffer, light work. Wrong! This world was made in 119, which meant that I had to fly 13,000 fucking blocks to get this stupid sniffer egg! Luckily, after my return, all I had to do was wait. And that meant I could gather up the rest of the resources and get building. My favorite thing about this build is the various balconies she put on it, and I think they add a lot to the build. That said, Glitter, fuck you for putting torch flowers in this build. So my conclusion from this experience is that archaeology is a miserable feature and the sniffer is incredibly stupid and frustrating. Anyway, moving on to my less evil friend Blitzheart, this build is brilliant. I really love the layout and the texturing here. I do have to say, Blitz, how the fuck do you build anything in survival? This was like the most atrocious inventory management I've ever dealt with in my life. The block vomit texturing is insane. It looks great, but I don't know how you function. Anyway, plug for her, she streams pretty regularly on Twitch. I never get to show up because they're always at like 4 AM for me. But when they're not at 4 AM and I show up, they're always pretty fucking good. And now it's time. Block number 11, the grand finale. Went for a very different color scheme with this building, going with the brown, white, copper thing. It was loosely inspired by the Marquette building in Chicago. I said loosely. My favorite detail is probably the texturing with the terracotta and spruce, which was suggested by Carrie, who's kind of a genius with texturing and shit. After that building, I filled the leftover space with some outdoor seating and a basketball court and trees. And with that, I could say the main part of the city was complete. And goddamn is it beautiful. I'm incredibly happy with this. But there's one blemish on this beautiful thing I've created, and that's this shithole. So, by popular demand, I'm finally cleaning it up. So Pulsar from my Discord helped me refine the design for this area, so thank you for that, Pulsar. In addition to telling me to do it over a year ago, we ignore that part. Speaking of, you should join my Discord. You can see project updates to me, show off your own projects, and even build parasocial bonds. While you're down in the description looking for that, you should, just hit all the buttons and make me feel validation. That'd be pretty cool too. Anyway, getting into the actual project. The first step was to clear out room to place on, which was pretty easy given I'd already blown up the entire goddamn mountain. In front here, I put a tunnel for the road and these big retaining walls, since it would have been a very obnoxiously steep hill if I sloped it down normally. After that, I put this grand staircase down with some little statues of Brad and I there, since, we own the base. Then I filled the main area in with lime terracotta and frog lights. Frog lights help prevent snow, and I covered them in green carpet so they didn't look like ass. With the base area done, it was time to add details. Trees, flower beds, the like. However, during this process, I was very rudely interrupted.
Beyonder! I got something to show you.
Okay. I have a feeling this is not good.
Follow me, Beyonder! Follow me!
Okie dokie. Oh my god!
Yo, Beyonder, I noticed you didn't have cars in the city, so I, built an airplane.
OP, you idiot! You've built 9/11! The absolute state of this fucking video. I've already built a fucking gay bar, and now you've built 9/11.
My bad, Beyonder. It was just...
It's like a decent plane,
just...
too. Why did you go this hard for the dumbest thing imaginable?
It was just edging me. It was just edging me.
What do you mean?
TS, you don't get it, Beyonder.
Well, you committed just like in the real thing. With the terrorist attack behind me, I got back to planting flowers. On this side I added a flower bed and some custom birch trees. I also used this trick with putting coral on waterlogged slabs so it doesn't die. Coral's got a lot more vibrant colors than you can ever get from normal flowers, so I think it looks really good. On the other side, I finished things off with this nice little reflecting pool. And with that, we've finally done it. The base is fully complete with glorious skyscrapers, a massive stadium, a gay bar, and a very unfortunately placed aircraft. I really couldn't be more happy with how it turned out. I'd also like to take a moment at the end here to say a few things. The first is that the next video I make will be the last Corex video of the season, before we reset and move on to another world. If you're interested in potentially joining us next season, there's an application link for it down below in the description. Speaking of that next video, due to some changes in how I make videos, that project's already nearly half done, so it should be coming down the pipeline and not like 6 or 7 fucking months. But yeah, if you enjoyed this, be sure to stick around for that video, and until then, tell your folks I says hi. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. They saved 2 towers from OP. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound.